Greetings. Welcome back again. So just finally got around to posting a video. It's a little about 20 minutes long, maybe a little bit longer than 20 minutes. Talking about Kyle Rittenhouse and the Waukesha, Wisconsin thing. So I guess depending on what you're tuned into, what you're not tuned into, what you're watching, what you're not watching. As far as socio-political stuff. So there's the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, and if you're on the internet, and depending on who your friends on the internet are, you may or may not have seen a meme or two about how we have this new coronavirus variant at the same time as the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. In other words, the joke is the Ghislaine Maxwell trial is starting, release the Omicron variant. I'll be honest, I don't know how much truth there is to that, but it's funny because it's coincidental. I'll put it like that. The Supreme Court is also hearing the case of the Mississippi law regarding 15 weeks to outlaw an abortion. I've noticed that abortion is a hot button issue, so I will provide some commentary, and I will also post some questions, if you will, and we'll see if we get any feedback. That's always the goal, is to get feedback. First and foremost, I don't have a dog in this fight. I don't particularly care. And I don't say that with malice. I don't say that with ill intent. I just mean I don't care. Sarcasm, no sarcasm, serious, joking, whatever the case may be, I don't care. I've met people who have squandered the gift of life, and if they could have been aborted as a clump of cells, they may have done the world a favor. I've seen people that, for no fault of their children, should not be having kids, should not be responsible for other human beings, and if there's any chance in hell that their kids will grow up to continue to repeat that cycle, yeah. In which case, it kind of goes back to that whole Thanos thing. How many people are out there right now that have squandered the gift of life, that are just, and not being their best self, not being the most productive member of society, and if you could just, like that, free up more oxygen for the rest of us. So, with all of that being said, sarcasm, a little bit of truth, a little bit of cynicism, a little sociopathic thought processes, I don't really have a dog in the fight. I believe that the choice to have an abortion is a deeply personal choice, and one that needs to remain personal and nobody else's business, and should basically involve the two people, three if you include the doctor. So there's the gentleman who helped create the child and the woman who helped create the child. Now, stuff like incest, rape, that's a completely different story. Whether it's a minor and the parents are involved, that's a different story. The bottom line is I don't really see how me, as average white guy just trying to make a living, just trying to put food on the table, not really any of my business. If you want to get more personal, as it would eventually turn out, I have a mutated Rett gene. So I have a genetic mutation that is hereditary. It is passed along through my biological father's side of the family, and what it does is it causes a condition known as Hirschsprung's disease, or Hirschsprung-related colon. Essentially, you have these nerves inside the intestine that basically allow material to move through the intestine during the digestive process, making its way down to the sphincter and then the anus, and it's released. Hirschsprung's disease prevents the formation of these nerves in utero, so while a fetus is growing, and therefore what happens is you just have areas of intestine that don't work, and it comes in all different forms. I don't think she's home, but wife could be home soon. I won't go into a long diatribe about that, but the bottom line is my wife and I had a child that received the condition as well as received the mutated gene, and eventually he would need a transplant and would eventually succumb to the complications of the illness and the transplant, and we lost him 7 years ago this coming March. That being said, if science was at the point where my wife and I were still trying to have kids and we were able to detect in the early stages of fetal development that the child was probably going to have a severe case of Hirschsprung's, which that means they're able to test and they're able to determine what the likelihood of Hirschsprung's complications there would be. There's a chance we may have considered the option of abortion, and that is something that her and I would have to discuss, and it's deeply personal, and it has nothing to do with anybody else. So, as far as that whole concept of abortion, I don't really see how it's anybody's business. What I will agree is there's a certain time frame where you have the shit or get off the pot, and I've said this in one or two videos. At some point, I think that's what Mississippi is attempting to do, is like, look, after 15 weeks, you've had plenty of time. Conversely, if you want to have the argument, well, resources, finances, whatever, okay, that is a separate argument, and I'm willing to have that, and I'm willing to discuss that. I think what Mississippi and maybe a few other states are trying to negotiate is, when do you get to make up your mind? At what point during the child's development do you get to make up your mind? And for what reasons? And I'll admit, I think it's a very touchy subject. The people screaming, my body, my choice, and those other pejoratives and whatnot, I don't know that that's the best argument. I know Steven Crowder just got done talking about it on today's show, and he was blasting Trevor Noah. I like Trevor Noah for the fact that he is willing to have conversations and he's willing to be rational. I don't know if he writes his material, his current late night material, now that he's gotten away from stand-up. I don't like his political angle. I really don't like his political angle. But I admire the fact that I think he'd be willing to have a conversation. And on that note, if Trevor Noah is going to represent the left, liberals, progressives, Democrats, whatever label you want to use, then the one challenge that has never been accepted is, if you want to keep blasting conservatives, which I'm not a Kool-Aid drinking, label wearing conservative, but if you want to keep blasting conservatives of how they keep defining life, the reason they're defining life is because they're being challenged by the left, they're being challenged by Democrat, liberal, progressive, whatever you want to call them, to define the parameters of life. Equally and opposite, the left, Democrats, liberals, progressives, whatever you want to call them, they refuse to answer the challenge of, what do you consider life? All right? If conservatives, Republicans, whatever, are required to answer the challenge of, what do you think is life, then the left should be able to do the same. And I'm willing to have that discussion, because I think, yeah, you know what? There's all kinds of potential reasons why you could have the discussion on the validity of abortion. The my body, my choice argument, I'm going to throw that one out. But I'm going to put it on the shelf for a moment, because I'm going to circle back to it, not to quote Jen Psaki. So since the left cannot quantify what they deem as life, okay, the other thing we keep hearing is, my body, my choice, get your hands off my body, blah, 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 my body, my choice. Okay, let's run with that. Let's etch that in stone like the Magna Carta, and let's run with that. Your body, your choice, which means the same people, whether they're up at the Capitol right now or they're anywhere else in the United States, screaming, my body, my choice, hands off my body, whatever the case may be, you need to practice what you preach, and you need to put your money where your mouth is. The same should go for vaccines. If you want the same fair treatment when it comes to abortion, my body, my choice, then the exact same thing should apply to the COVID vaccine. If it's your body, your choice for an abortion, then it's my body, my choice for a vaccine. And therefore, I think in both cases, where we might be able to find common ground in the middle, is if you want the government to stay out of that decision, all right? If you think the government should stay out of the decision-making process of abortions, whether that's up to the state, whatever the case may be, then I think the same metric and method and procedure should be applied to the COVID vaccine, all right? Are they apples and oranges? Yes. But when you say something like my body, my choice, if that's your rallying cry, if that's the slogan that's going to go on your battle flag, then you should die by it. If you're gonna live by that slogan, you should die by that slogan, which means equally and opposite. While it may not be the same thing, if my body, my choice is the battle cry, if it goes on your battle flag, then you should treat the COVID virus vaccine the exact same way. My body, my choice. But I'm willing to have that discussion. We'll see if anybody wants to participate. We'll see if anybody wants to get involved and have the conversation. What else is making the rounds? There's the... Oh, yeah. Apparently, whether it's BLM or BLM-related like-minded people are pushing this like really pro-black narrative. Black Santas and shopping at black-owned businesses. Black. I don't know what it's like to be black. Hello. So I don't know what it's like to be black. Therefore, I can't pretend to understand what the black experience is anywhere in the world. I don't know or I can't imagine trying to share the feelings of wanting a black Santa. My understanding from actual, just the slightest bit of Google research is the real Saint Nick, regardless of how his name is pronounced, is from northern Turkey, which would make him Middle Eastern, and I think Steven Crowder said it best, if a black guy, Saint Nick, and a white guy are going through TSA, Saint Nick is going to get stopped first, and he's probably going to get harassed the most by TSA. And he's an actual person who basically gave up his belongings to the less fortunate. So he has nothing to do with white pigmentation. He's got nothing to do with black pigmentation because he doesn't come from white countries like Scandinavia, etc., and he doesn't come from African nations where the skin's darker. So technically speaking, the real St. Nicholas should probably look more Middle Eastern. And if you also don't know, the Coca-Cola company and somebody working for Coca-Cola more or less came up with the modern version of what we know as St. Nick, the jolly white guy, whatever, the portly white guy. But here's the thing, and to get back on that, Steven Crowder was talking about how the current trend in America, the current socio-political movement right now is this massive massive push for like white guilt and black this and basically pushing for segregation. Don't shop at white this. Let's have black schools. And he's not wrong. I'm paraphrasing the hell out of this, and I'm probably butchering the crap out of this, and I do apologize. Hopefully, if you've made it the 13 minutes this far, you understand what I'm talking about. And it's in the 21st century, all right? It's almost 2022. We're almost the second year into the third decade of the 21st century. We're going back in time. We're spinning the wheels backwards. Instead, where white people were not wanting to integrate with browns and blacks and whatnot, or yellow or red, you have, for the most part, black trying to separate from at least white. I don't know if black is trying to separate from brown, red, yellow, or whatever, but at least they're trying to create their own segregation. And I think what Steven was trying to get at was you're creating new racism. You're creating racism because now white kids aren't going to be comfortable trying to become friends with black kids or brown kids or red kids or yellow kids because they don't ever want to be accused of anything. They don't ever want to be accused of racism. So essentially you're creating this new artificial racism. And I had this conversation with my therapist yesterday, and after all of that stuff I just said, where I basically just babbled and rambled, here's what I learned. Our kids don't care. Our kids aren't paying attention. All right? I got a daughter who's a junior in high school, and I got a son who's an 8th grader, and they're blind to it all. So a lot of that stuff that we worry about as parents, it's not happening with our kids, and I'll leave it at that. I take great solace in that. So, you know the deal. Like, dislike, subscribe, don't subscribe, but get involved. Let's have the conversations. All right? Look forward to hearing from you.